You'll see a different version of the New York Giants on Sunday when they host the Green Bay Packers. There'll be a change at quarterback, and there'll be a change at head coach. Let's talk about it next on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Hi again, everybody. Paul Dottino back with you for another edition of the Big Blue Breakdown Live. We did our special edition on Monday night as the Giants announced they were parting ways with head coach Brian Daboll, and they named offensive coordinator Mike Kafka as their interim head coach. Well, since that time, we have also learned that Jaxson Dart, as expected, remains in the NFL's concussion protocol. Mike Kafka himself told us today that Jameis Winston, also as expected, will get the start on Sunday at home against the Green Bay Packers as the Giants try to stop a 4-game losing streak. Russell Wilson now becomes quarterback number 2 on Sunday, and it remains to be seen when Dart is able to come out of the protocol and reclaim his starting job. But that's for another time because, as Kafka said, we're just talking about this weekend. Now, as far as Dart is concerned, the only thing he was able to tell us is that Dart is in the middle of the protocol. So that's good because, as everybody knows, there are 4 steps until the 5th step is actually getting cleared from the protocol. We don't know exactly what number Dart is at, but it does sound like he's at least further along than some people who enter the protocol and are still in the early stages. But that, again, is going to be more interesting for next week's game when they head to Detroit to take on the Lions. As far as this weekend's game against the Green Bay Packers, well, that's what the Giants have to worry about right now. And I think the most important thing to take into account is that the Giants are not looking ahead. They've got 7 games left, a 2-8 record, and the fact remains that this team right now is on a skid. They need something to feel good about. They've just lost their head coach. They've lost their star running back as of a couple of weeks ago when Cam Scatterbo went down with a dislocated ankle for the season. And now they've also lost their star rookie quarterback. It seems like the sky is falling on the New York Giants. So they've got to come up with something that's going to give them an injection of positivity. Now, as far as Jameis Winston is concerned, he's that guy. Talking to Winston today, he continued to talk about, I'm going to do everything I can to serve. He looks at himself as a guy who is accountable and responsible for as much as he can control as the starting quarterback of this team to try to lead them to victory. He talks about how today you got to practice well, then you got to practice well again tomorrow, and then again on Friday. He is promising Giants fans that he will do everything he can to produce a positive result and a positive vibe and a positive energy with his teammates against the Packers on Sunday. Now, Winston's in his 10th NFL season. We know he started a half a dozen or so games last year with the Cleveland Browns. Okay, that's all well and good. But this is 2025, and the Giants need to start winning games now. And that's just a fact. Nothing Winston's done, whether or not he made one Pro Bowl, whether or not he's been a 30 touchdown, 30 interception quarterback for a given season one year. None of that stuff is important. What's important to the Giants right now is that he is a veteran quarterback who has brought an awful lot to the locker room and to his teammates. On the practice field, I want to make that clear. It's locker room demeanor, but it's also practice field demeanor. He has been an exemplary pro and an exemplary teammate to do everything he can do to try to boost this team. Now, those of you who know me and have listened to this program or Big Blue Kickoff Live for a while know that Jameis Winston's entire career has been littered with high risk, high reward. he has been, quite honestly, I think the best word you could use, inconsistent, perhaps erratic is another good word. He can make big plays. He can also make baffling plays. That's just the way it is. But for the Giants, they're hoping that the big plays he makes on Sunday outnumber the baffling plays, and maybe the big plays that he makes on Sunday are enough to spark them past a terrific defense that the Green Bay Packers have. They are outstanding defensively. But offensively, well, they're struggling. Love has not thrown a touchdown pass in each of the last two games that he's going on now. This could be potentially his third straight week if he doesn't throw one this week. So he is struggling. Josh Jacobs is not even averaging 4 yards a carry, if you can believe that. Both him and Saquon Barkley are certainly having subpar seasons. And they've also got some injuries in their wide receiving core. And their offensive line, by the way, they just lost their starting center. So, offensively, the Packers are a very challenged team. And by the way, you think the Giants' kicking situation has been a problem this year. Do I really need to tell you what the Packers have done with McManus, who has a terrific resume, but he's only hitting 2/3 of his field goal attempts this season? He has been very erratic. And yet, they're actually carrying, as of earlier this morning, 2 kickers on their roster. They've got Lucas Havrasik, who they picked up this year from San Francisco, and they've got McManus. Now, McManus has an incredibly powerful leg. You remember years ago, he was a former Giant at one point, and then for many years kicked with the Denver Broncos. But the point about it is that they're not sure what to do. They don't know if they should go with the kid because they're in a playoff race, or they should go with the experienced veteran who has a long resume but has been incredibly inconsistent. So they've got kicking problems, and kicking problems cost you points, as Giants fans no doubt know. So what am I telling you? Well, I'm telling you that the Green Bay Packers are one of those middleweight class teams that the Giants should be in. But the Giants have had 4 games that they have blown and given away and basically taken themselves out of the middleweight division because they are now 2-8 on the season. But this roster, I know they've got some injuries right now, but this roster, in all honesty, is a middleweight quality roster. So could they be competitive against the Packers? They absolutely could, even though Green Bay has a stellar defense. Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary, their 2 best pass rushers, they are a problem. Secondary is really good. It's a very fast defense. But we'll talk more about the Giants and the Packers a little bit later on in the program. Folks, just want you to understand, there's the chat off to the right of your screen. We'll be very glad to talk to you through the chat. But as always, there you see at the bottom of our screen, you have the link. If you want to make a phone call, we'd love to talk to you on the phone. If you want to make a video call, we'd love to talk to you on a video call as well. Let's get just to some of the other particulars from today. Mike Kafka is the new interim head coach for the Giants. He said he's going to tweak some things at practice this week. Obviously, they're going to have to reestablish the proper lines of communication because they have had to juggle some things now that he is in charge. He is going to remain the play caller. He has named tight ends coach Tim Kelly is now going to be his offensive coordinator. And he is a guy who had been an offensive coordinator in 2 different places before he came to the Giants, with the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. Now, I have a very special note that I just got from a very, very special guest who was potentially going to come onto our program tonight. And now it looks like he may try to join the show. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to send him a message. And I'm sorry, I've kind of broken my train of thought at the moment. But let me see if I can send him a message here. And this very special guest of ours, who I'd love to have on the program, and it didn't look like it was going to be possible, but now it seems like it might be. So let me see. Let's see. I'm going to send him a text message right now and see if we can get him to join the program. This would be very cool. This is live, not TV. It's live computer, right? It's not live TV. It's not live radio. It's live computer. I can't remember the last time I've done a live show. Let's see here. I can't remember the last time I've done a live show where all of a sudden I had a potential guest suddenly want to drop in. See, the difference is they can't just walk onto the set or just dial the phone. Now they actually have to get to a computer and let's see here. We'll see if this happens. I'm sending him a message now. We're going to see if maybe he could do this. Okay. This is funny. All right. But Kafka was talking about how he's going to keep Shane Bowen as the defensive coordinator for now. And the only change is that Tim Kelly moves from tight ends to becoming the OC. All right. In addition to that, we have two roster moves to talk about. Graham Gano, because of that neck injury, has gone to injured reserve. So that puts him out for at least 4 weeks. I would anticipate Younghoe Koo is going to be the kicker, I would think, against the Packers. Little Jordan Humphrey, Giants wide receiver, who had been activated for 2 games earlier this season and actually had, one decent game. Well, turns out he went back to the practice squad, as you know, after being activated twice. And now the Denver Broncos, according to ESPN, have plucked him from the Giants practice squad and brought him back to Denver, where he was before the Giants had an opportunity to grab him during the offseason. Let me see here. Oh, looks like we may still have our guest. I'm gonna tell him anytime before 9:15. How about that? Folks, you're gonna have to stand by. Let's see here. Folks, you're going to have to stand by and figure out who our mystery guest is. But I promise you, if you do stick around and our mystery guest is revealed, you will enjoy it. Because not only is he well-spoken and a one-time and still, I believe, fan favorite, but he also has something very relevant to bring to the table, because he can specifically speak to what the Giants are going through right now, because he has experience through a very similar situation to what the Giants are currently stuck in. So let me just say that, and I certainly hope our mystery guest is able to make it in over the course of the next hour. I'm going to take this program to 9:30 with the hope and anticipation that he can make it in. I was thinking of only going to 9 o'clock tonight and doing a 1-hour program, but I think we might just go the 90 minutes in the hopes that our mystery guest will be able to join us. All right, back to the issue at hand. In terms of Mike Kafka, he did not indicate to us today any kind of significant changes that we would see. He simply said that right now he just wants to smooth out the operation because they've got a game to play on Sunday. And so they need to figure out exactly how they want the communication to work. We still don't even know right now, and I'm sure he does, or maybe he hasn't figured it out yet. We don't know if Tim Kelly is going to be in the box or if he's going to be on the sideline. Obviously, quarterback coach Shea Tierney is also going to be part of this equation. I will say this. You guys know my preference always has been that the head coach does not call the plays. This is a unique situation. You're changing your lead seat in the middle of the season. And so you've elevated the guy who is calling the plays into that lead seat. I think in this case, you make an exception. I think you have to allow Kafka to call the plays because it creates a more smooth transition. If you were to take him off the plays, you're now juggling even more fruit out of the apple cart, and you're going to create chaos. So I'm on board in this situation. Again, my strong preference normally is that the head coach does not call the plays, but in this case, I think it probably makes a lot more sense. Okay? So that's where we stand right now with that situation. I could talk an awful lot to you folks about this Giants-Packers matchup because there are a lot of intriguing matchups to be contested on Sunday. We could also talk about a bunch of names that maybe you have some ideas. If the Giants wind up not going to Kafka, he's got 7 games to be the Giants head coach. What if he goes 7-0? I mean, look, I don't want to put a cap on anybody. What if the Giants go 7-0 under Kafka? Well, then you know what? I think he's going to get a real strong look at the job. If he doesn't go 7-0, well, then however many wins he gets will probably either strengthen or lessen his ability when he goes in for his end of season interview. I'm sure that's how it's going to work. Remember, Kafka's been interviewed by 7 teams, I believe, over the course of the last 6 years. A lot of organizations have called about him to potentially be a head coach. So he is clearly well thought of. And by the way, I mentioned this on the show Monday night, on the special Monday, and I'm going to mention it again here. And that is this. The 4-year tenure with Daboll, 22, 23, 24, 25. The 2 best offensive seasons that the Giants had, 2022 and the current season, 2025. The 23 season was a mess. Injuries and a bunch of stuff that happened to that team offensively, in addition to a horrific offensive line. I don't know that I would want to really pin that on Mike Kafka's resume. But he had a lot of the tools that the Giants had promised him opening day in 2022 at his disposal. And the Giants offense, despite a very substandard wide receiving core, remember Richie James led the team with 53 catches, tied with Saquon Barkley. They wound up having to pick up Isaiah Hodgins midway through the season off waivers from Buffalo, and he gave them a boost. But the Giants were a middling offense, middle of the pack offense that year. That was Daniel Jones' best season. And what have we seen with Mike Kafka calling plays this year? We've seen an offense that is, up from 16 points a game to 22 points a game. That works. That works for me. That says he has given this team a boost. So in 2 of the 3 years that he was calling the plays for the Giants during his 4 years here, the offense was at least respectable. So I think that everybody should sit back and do the old Missouri test, right? Wait and see. Show me. The show me state, Missouri. The Missouri test. Show me, Mike Kafka, that maybe you are the right guy to be the head coach. Keep an open mind. Give him a chance. And just remember, 22 and 25 have been the Giants' best offensive seasons over the last 4 years, and he called the plays for both of those campaigns. All right, enough is said about that. It will be interesting to see how Mike winds up deploying his players. I'm going to tell you right now, one thing, we don't know how he's going to want to work his running backs rotation. We don't know how much he's going to want to use the tight ends, right? We don't know that for sure. Is there going to be a little bit of a change? See, what we'll find out on Sunday against the Packers, at least I suspect you will start finding out, is how much of the offensive philosophy and player deployment was coming from the previous head coach and how much of it was coming from the offensive coordinator. Because and here's why I say this, folks, and I'm going to get to your chats in just a second. Here's why I say this, because what is the running back rotation going to be? Tyrone Tracy ran for 70 yards last week. He looked good. Okay? Make no mistake about that. That was the Tyrone. I talked to him today. I said, that's the Tyrone Tracy we saw last season. If Tyrone Tracy is back in rhythm like that again, I think you want to make him the primary back. And you want to see him have a second half of the season, much like what he did in 2024 as a rookie. I would think, I don't know this, but I would think another potential option, which may come into play now, but I don't know, where does Jalin Hyatt fit into this equation? We know it had been quite a mystery that he was pretty much buried. Now, with the change in the head coaching position, does Jalin Hyatt get another chance and maybe a final chance with the Giants to emerge from the shadows and become part of the rotation again? Does that happen? I think it's worth watching. It's a question you have to ask. You also have to ask yourself, how many double tight end sets are we going to see? Are there going to be more passes thrown to Bellinger or Johnson? Theo Johnson last week set career highs with 7 catches and over 70 yards. Are we going to see perhaps Gunnar Olszewski potentially get some more reps at wide receiver? People have been asking me on this show and certainly on Big Blue Kickoff Live, they kind of gave up asking about Jalin Hyatt because he had been buried so far deep into the shadows. But there have been people who've asked about Gunnar Olszewski, and rightfully so. He's as tough as nails. And we already know what he does on special teams, and he had a sensational training camp. Catches everything that's thrown near him. And he's fearless. So maybe all of a sudden Gunnar Olszewski becomes a little bit more part of the who knows? So this is what I'm talking about when I tell you that I'm really curious, especially on the offensive side of the ball, about the player deployment by the Giants. Because now you have a new boss in charge who may or may not feel the same exact way that the previous boss felt about certain individual players. Okay? So keep an eye on that, because we may get some hints on Sunday, or maybe it's a little too soon. Maybe we'll have to wait till the following week against Detroit. But these are the kinds of things I'll be watching for as I got my microscope out for the game. All right, it looks like we are going to have our very special guest very shortly. All right, so before we get to him, and we'll get to him in just a bit, let's see if we can get some of our chats out of the way. Let's see. Big Blue 4751. Good evening, Paul. Second show in 48 hours. Outstanding. Looking forward to your insights and positive vibes. Well, I'll tell you what, Big Blue, I'm just trying to give you the factual vibes. I don't know how positive they are. I'm just trying to give you the reality of it. I hope you're doing well. And yeah, 2 shows in 48 hours. That was not originally in the plan. Aiden Fink says, good evening, Paul. All aboard the Jameis coaster. Let's beat this Green Bay team who's been struggling the past few weeks. Matt Seepersad says, at least there's some excitement to look forward to this week. And he also says, good evening, everyone. Okay, good stuff. Hey, what about this? Harlem X. Hey, Paul. Hi, everybody. Hope you guys remember me. Still a regular. We'll be video calling again soon. Absolutely. So glad to have you back on. Scott Young, 1669. Good evening, Paul. I know a lot of fans would like the big-name coach, but I'm pulling for Kafka. I feel he'd be the best guy for Jaxson Dart, and he does have his own system that he could implement. Well, remember now, we've often told you that the Dart learning curve was going to be in combination with Daboll and Kafka, and we weren't, smoking you on that. Both of these guys coming from successful offensive systems, Daboll in Buffalo, Kafka from Kansas City, they have both had tremendous influence on Jaxson Dart. And what we were trying to discern, and it was hard to discern over the course of the 4 years, how much of what we saw was more Buffalo, how much of what we saw was also a little bit of Kansas City mixed in. And to be honest with you, I don't know that I can put a percentage on it. It was more Buffalo, for sure. I mean, Daboll was the lead guy. But I can't tell you exactly how much Kansas City was mixed in. I think we'll see more Kansas City mixed into that meatball, if you will, coming up now that Kafka is, in fact, the lead guy. Matt Seepersad says if Daboll had fired Bowen 2 weeks ago like he should have, he probably still has his job. Well, I think, any kind of hypothetical that you want to throw out there does not have any proof either way. Can't prove it, can't disprove it. So, don't know what I could say about that. Scott Young says, Carl Banks may be the guest. It's a mystery man. It's a mystery man. Aiden Fink says, Kafka going to turn us into the 2022 Lions. Oh, boy. I don't know about that, okay? I don't know about that, but here's what I will say. I know Mike, as some of his players said today, is poised. He's a calm guy who does have a lot of enthusiasm, but he also has a very business-like approach to things. He can get excited and up and positive when he needs to, but most of the time, he's on an even keel. And it does seem like the players do respect him for having that. Not that they didn't respect Brian Daboll at all. That's not the point. Just talking about Kafka as an individual, there's little doubt in my mind that the players do respect him. And that's a good thing because now he's in charge. And it certainly is a step in the right direction for the New York Giants that they've got a locker room that is behind this guy. Scott Young says, if Mike Kafka went 7-0, has no doubt we would keep him. 5-2 would be a possibility too. I like Kafka. Let's see. Okay. Oh, let's see now. I got to let my guy know here. Just here we go. Let's see here. Okay. I got to tell my mystery guest how to get in here. Look to the chat. I'm guessing that the chat is on the side. And okay, the New York Giants on SI box, and the link is in there. Oh my goodness. This is funny. I can't believe we're actually going through this, trying to produce the show while I'm on camera. Oh. I'm assuming here, guys, you can see the chats, right? Over on the side, because I just told him he should look on the chats on the side. I'm assuming you guys can all see the comments that are on the chat. I'm not a real techie guy, so this is like really hard for me to try to produce this show being a non-techie while I am on camera. It's it's kind of crazy. But in any event, oh my goodness. All right, let's see here. I'm hoping he can come in. Here. Oh. All right. In the meantime. Oh, there he is. It is time to bring in our very special guest. And I am so grateful that he was able to find the time tonight. We've been trying to communicate this afternoon. Didn't think it was going to be able to be happening, but it has indeed happened. Fans, I know you're going to love this guy because you've heard him a lot on TV and radio over the course of the last year or so. It is Justin Pugh joining us on the Big Blue Breakdown. Justin, it's great to see you again. How's everything?
Paul, clearly I'm not a tech guru either. Can you hear me just fine?
I can hear you awesome. And
I subscribed, I liked, I was commenting, I was tuning in, I was screaming at you through I thought I was in. So we're finally in, brother.
I am so grateful to have you on the program tonight. And I know the Giants fans are for sure as well. And the reason that I wanted to bring you on in particular, not just because you're a nice guy and you and I have known each other for your entire NFL career, but you were a part of the 2017 Giants team that had a coach replaced with 4 games to go. Ben McAdoo was jettisoned, and Steve Spagnuolo had to coach the last four games of that season. And I wanted to ask you, as a player who was on that team, in that locker room, on that roster, about the dynamic of what a locker room goes through when they lose their head coach and are forced to go into the shuffling of an interim.
Yeah, it's a great question, Paul. Obviously not an ideal situation. Unfortunately, I've been through the experience twice in my career, right? I was in Arizona, and that happened as well with Steve Wilkes my first season.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not all the way through the season. They actually replaced the offensive coordinator that year, Mike McCoy. It is a sobering experience to see the business of football shine through. When you're not winning games in this league, you always have potential to be, fired or have someone come in and replace your job. It is a what have you done for me lately league. Same with players, right? The players go through the same process. And if you're not producing, you'll get benched. You can get fired. There's only 32 head coaches. It's one of the toughest jobs in the world to get. And it's even tougher when you're in New York. So when we were there and Ben McAdoo got let go, yes, we were losing games, but also it was a part of the benching of Eli Manning, right? Like that was part of that entire situation that played a massive role. I think if Eli never got benched by McAdoo, he probably would have made it through the season, I would have assumed. It was definitely a sobering experience, and it lets you know as a player, well, if the head coach can go, we all better make sure we're on our P's and Q's. And it's an audition now. It's an audition of who will be here, because most likely the general manager will be gone. Most likely, all the assistant coaches that will be gone. And you're making sure you're auditioning for whoever comes next. And that was kind of how we all felt in that locker room. It was, hey, if Spags is the head coach, we want to impress him. If they, bring someone else in, this tape is going to show who I am as a player. And I think assistants feel the same way, because assistants have loyalty to the coach that brought them in, but they also have loyalty to wanting to have a job the next year. And that's the reality of it. And that's exactly what the atmosphere was like the last time. And I know in that facility today, it was business as usual. Yes, there was talk about Daboll not being there, but if they do not prepare to go against the Green Bay Packers, they're going to get embarrassed. And 20 guys on that roster potentially could be on their way out, and they can't let that happen.
Now, how hard is it? Like in this case, it's an offensive coordinator who's now in the big chair. In your case, when Spags was the defensive coordinator and then sat into the big chair, how hard is it for the other side of the ball to relate to that guy now as a head coach when he wasn't that close to that side of the ball in his previous job?
Yeah, it's very difficult because look, Kafka's job isn't to go over and talk to Tibbs or Dexter Lawrence and love them up and be a head coach. The head coach is a CEO. And I tweeted about this, guys. I don't think you should always look at it has to be a young coordinator. It has to be somebody to step up into the head coaching role. Special teams coaches make great head coaches. It's a wild take. And I don't know if any teams would ever do this, but imagine if you got someone that wasn't even didn't even have a football background, may have had I don't know a crazy name out there, but maybe there's like a strategist or a mathematician out there that can come in and let the football people handle the X's and O's and let the head coach handle strategy, clock management, personality management, dealing with the players and on the field, off the field situations. It's almost not even a football IQ job. But yeah, it is a tough situation that Kafka finds himself in because his job was to focus on the offense. His job was to focus on putting together a plan for Jaxson Dart and the offense. And now he's tasked with not only putting that plan together, but also getting the defense to want to buy in and play in that system. And that's a very hard job to find yourself in. Luckily, Kafka auditioned and interviewed and had experience going through that process to be a head coach. So, in his mind, he's thought about what he would say to the team if he ever got that job. So I think he was best set to take over that position.
A number of reporters today asked Giants players in the locker room if they felt they were responsible and had let Daboll down because of their 2-8 record. And some of the guys, and I'm not going to mention all the different names that talked in the locker room today, some guys said, well, this is the business. We didn't make enough plays, and this is the record we have. And that changes get made when the one-loss record turns out to be what it is. Kind of like they understood this is just the nature of pro football. Then there were a couple other guys who said, we really like what he was doing. It wasn't his fault. And yeah, we feel like we didn't make enough plays, and we did let him down. What is the balancing act that players have to feel? Because it's easy to say that a change like this is going to spark you and that, okay, maybe it's going to make you play better. But in reality, Justin, you guys are pros. You got to go out there and give 100% every week, because if you don't, it's dangerous. You're going to get hurt. So I don't expect that there's a dramatic change in any player's heart and soul just because there was a change made.
Yeah, I think you look at it from some ways. There's like a snowball effect, right? When you go to build a snowman, you don't start with the big base. You start with a little snowball, and it works positively and it works negatively, right? And that's where I think things start to go awry. Maybe it's not just Daboll, it's not just the players, but all of a sudden, you lose a close game and confidence drops a little bit. The snowball gets a little bit bigger in the wrong direction. A player doesn't show up on time or doesn't get corrected the right way by a position coach, things get adjusted a little bit. If the head coach handles the end of a game situation the wrong way, and as things snowball, it's never one thing and it's never one person. That's why football is the greatest sport on planet Earth. And in my opinion, I am biased. I'll admit that. But
Justin, I call it a spider web because all the strands are connected.
Exactly. So yes, Brian Daboll has a part to play in this, and ultimately he's responsible for the win-loss record. He was hired to do that job, and at 2-8, unfortunately, the job wasn't done, and someone will have to come in and take their place. I do believe the Giants made the right move in bringing back Brian Daboll this year, and him and Joe Shane being able to get their quarterback and go out there. I was at the Eagles game a few weeks ago, and that was the high of the Giants season, right? That game, I was in the stands with the fans. The energy was electric. We felt like we were heading in the right direction. And then that Denver game happened. And I think that Denver game was really a turning point where you had this almost insurmountable odds for Denver that could come back in that game. And then when they did, it started to show some cracks. And now all of a sudden we start pointing fingers. The players are 100% to blame as well. But you know what? If the players don't do their job the rest of the season, they also will get let go. And I want everyone to realize that. I want players in the room to recognize that. It happened to me when Ben McAdoo was no longer the head coach. Spags came in. They bring in Pat Shurmur. David Gettleman gets the job. Now, all of a sudden, they said, Justin, you're not a guy that we want to build the team around. Dave Gettleman, that was kind of the conversation. And I'm not mad. I was mad at him at first, and now I'm like, that's kind of the beauty of this. You're the general manager. You're the head coach. We're giving you this title. We're paying you this salary. You get to decide on how this team's built, the character and the culture within this organization. And if you don't do a good job, just like anyone else in the world, you will not have that job anymore. And it's cold. I love Brian Daboll as a human being. I'm sad that he's no longer the coach because I played for him and I would go and see him when I would go to games. But it's the business that we're in, and it's the reason why we love the game. I say that with a smile on my face, and I'm sad on the inside because a man lost his job. But it's what happens to all of us in life. If you don't do your job and you don't produce, unfortunately, it's the world we live in. But it's the reality we live in as well.
All right, now you and I understand this, but maybe not all the fans do. You make a change like this in midseason, there's not a whole lot you can do to change what the team is going to do. The scheme is pretty much set, right? On both offensively and defensively. Maybe you got a few things that you could do to the playbook a little bit. Maybe when you use them, you might throw a few other things in there. But for the most part, Justin, you're going to see the Giants 2025 playbook, no matter who the head coach is at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think the one thing that you could see, and Spags did this when he became the head coach, he changed the Friday practice. We put the pads back on Fridays, and he tried to kind of get into like, I'm going to toughen you guys up, and we're going to go out there and hit again, and it's going to translate to games on Sundays. And sometimes the rah-rah works, and sometimes the changing, like, I don't know if you need some statistician or some data analytics. Like what's the results after teams fire their head coach the very next game? Like, do they come out and win more times than not? Do they, all those different things. I'm sure there's like stats out there, but there definitely is a little bit of a jolt to the team. And it's not a jolt of like energy because the head coach is here and he's this rah-rah great human being. It's like every player and coach is like, oh my God, we're all about to lose our jobs. We better go out and play harder. And hungry dogs run faster. I know that's a saying out there. You will see that on Sunday. And unfortunately, we're playing a Packers team that also just got, beat up. I don't want to say embarrassed, but they only scored 7 points. They didn't look great on Monday night. So they're going to be coming in with a chip on their shoulder. And it's going to be a battle. It's going to be physical is what I predict on Sunday.
All right, now let me ask you this. Aside from the coaching change, because of Jaxson Dart and the protocol, and we all know what he has done to this Giants team, really given them a lot of energy, as did Cam Scatterboo before he wound up dislocating his ankle and being lost for the season against Philadelphia. So Dart now, because he's in protocol, forces you to make a quarterback change. And so not only does this locker room have to deal with a coaching change, they also have a change at quarterback, which, as we all know, is the leader of the team on the field. So how much does that discombobulate the situation?
What I will say is I guarantee in that locker room, the respect the guys have for Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston is so immense that it's just almost like the head coach not being there, right? Like I'll give the craziest example. It's the same year with McAdoo and Spags. We went out to walk through, and I remember Eli, like I was the last locker when you would head out towards the outdoor facility where you are right now. And I remember Eli just kind of like saying to the O-line, because we all sat in that corner, he's like, hey, I'm not going this week or whatever he said. I'm not starting this week. And I remember like the shock of hearing Eli say it's going to be way different than Jaxson Dart and injury. But I just remember we had to get into that huddle, and Geno Smith was the quarterback. And when Geno Smith called the play, I'm locked in to do my job on that play. Yes, I wanted Eli out there, and look, Geno is still a really good quarterback. We've seen that with what he's done since. But like when Geno calls the play, he's the quarterback. The organism has to go on. There will be another Justin Pugh playing left guard. There will be another quarterback after Eli Manning, and we might not want that to be the case. We wanted Eli to play forever, but the game goes on. The game doesn't miss a beat. Everybody is a cog in the machine, even up towards ownership, right? There's going to be another owner at some point in time, and someone else is going to lead the team. It's just that it happens every, more decades are in between of those things happening. But there was a passing of the torch between, Mr. Mara and John Mara and how that was even passed on. So no matter what, American football will go on. You know why? Because we love it. And the game has to go on, and someone has to play quarterback, and someone has to be the head coach. So it's something that once you realize that, and it's what I loved about what I've been doing this year. I'm learning more of the fan perspective, traveling to all the games I go to now and seeing what that's all about, and trying to bridge the gap between the business and the player side and the fandom side, it's been amazing because the fans change your perspective on even how I play and how I think about the game. But that's why I love to peel the curtain back on this and show like it is a business. And when the quarterback's not there, you have to go out there. And Andrew Thomas still has to be Andrew Thomas on Sunday, regardless if it's Jameis, if it's Russell, if it's Jaxson Dart. And you never want to see a young player get hurt. And quite frankly, rest up, Jaxson Dart. You got a bright future. Rest up, Cam Scatterboom, Malik Neighbors. The future is bright. We're going to get ready to go do this, but let's find out who's going to be a part of that journey. And we're going to find out these next few games who else is going to be a part of that ride, because we're in that time. We're changing and we're turning over the new leaf. And whether you like it or not, or it's fair or not, like I didn't think it was fair that Dave Gettleman didn't want to pay me because I thought I was a good player. That's what he wanted to do, and I actually love that it goes down that way.
Wow. That's an interesting perspective on it for sure. But of course, as you say, as years go by, you look at it a little differently than you did at the time, no doubt.
Personal bias always is going to kick in, right? Right now, I bet you, there's coaches like Brian Daboll. I actually would love to know, like, is he pulling or is he cheering against the Giants this weekend? Like, because I'll be quite frank, when I played the Giants, I wanted to beat you guys so bad when I was at the Arizona Cardinals. We rushed for 200 yards. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
But then, like, you sit back and realize when you're not in the situation and it's not personally affecting you, it changes your perspective on things, right?
Yep, for sure. If I could get you for a few more minutes, or do you have to run?
No, my wife is putting my daughter down right now. She just went down to bed. So we're getting ready to watch Dancing with the Stars that played last night. And apparently Rashad Jennings, former New York Giant running back, and Dancing, he makes an appearance on this week's episode. So I'm excited.
Does he really? Yeah.
Yes.
I you know what I remember about Rashad Jennings, and I want to get back to our topic in a minute. I remember Rashad Jennings, who was the last person in his draft to be taken that year. When he got to the Giants, he had said he had never made a playoff appearance during his NFL career. And when you guys made it in 2016, he sat at his locker and he cried. He was absolutely overcome with emotion because he thought that his career might go without a playoff appearance, and it just blew him away. I'll never forget that.
That gives me goosebumps. That was my first playoff appearance. And when I sit here I was just talking about this at dinner. I went to dinner. We were at dinner at our neighbor's house, and they're Giants fans. And we talked about that game. I would have bet the world that we were winning the Super Bowl. I thought if we got into the playoffs, no matter our record, we had Eli Manning, we were winning the Super Bowl. And that game, I remember like it was yesterday. Actually, someone just sent me a text with the video of us warming up pregame. I was never more confident we were going to win that game. And that's still one that hurts. I hate talking about it, but
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring that up in that regard.
It's good to know that we did that for Rashad, right? And it was the first time I got to go to the playoffs, and I'll always remember that as well. I probably will tear up one day thinking about that experience.
All right, let me just go back to what you were talking about before, about what the whole change of quarterback scenario. Okay, it's one thing to know that the wheel has to continue to turn, but it's another thing when you're an offensive lineman and now you're blocking for a guy who's making the different calls, and it's a different cadence, and it's a different rhythm, and it's a different voice back there, and it's also a guy who doesn't quite have the legs that Dart had to scramble around, to extend plays. Maybe he's going to take off and run. No, I don't think we're going to see quite that from Jameis Winston. So isn't there a reality that as an offensive lineman, you also have to think about that aspect of it?
100%. Again, I'll give another great example. When I was in Arizona, we had Sam Bradford, who was coming off knee injuries and not mobile, great thrower of the ball. And then we got into Kyler Murray the next year, and it's night and day. Think about this, for example. You play football, it's 11 on 11. Everyone knows that. When you run the ball and you don't have a mobile quarterback, you're playing 11 on 10 because no one's honoring Sam Bradford when he tries to pull it and run with it, or Eli for that matter. Like, no one was worrying about it. And when you have Jaxson Dart, sometimes you have to allot two people to worry about Jaxson Dart or a Kyler Murray or a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. And now you're playing odds in your favor. And I remember it was so much easier to run the ball when we had the threat of quarterback keep, because a linebacker would run with him, the safety would run with him. we would just put defenses in compromising positions, and it was definitely easier to run the ball. Now, the beauty of Eli Manning is the ball came out in 2 seconds, went to the right receiver every single time. It was like he was like a human AI, right? Like he knew, like, okay, they have a safety rotated this way. I'm throwing it to, Ruben Randall or Hakeem, whoever it was, Hakeem Nicks. And that was the beauty of like the both of those equations. Tom Brady talks about it all the time. It's very fascinating. They will have to completely adjust with Jameis in there. He's a gunslinger. Famously, the 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. Like, he's going to sit back there. He's going to take a hit and he's going to get the ball out. And he's more like that Eli Manning style quarterback. Number 1 overall pick in the draft, has the arm talent, has the processing. And I think that's going to be a very exciting game to watch. I will be there in attendance this weekend going crazy. I might need my Jameis Winston jersey. Can we get me a Jameis Winston jersey to rock for the game?
Before I let you talk about, because before you go, I do want you to let people know about what you're doing with the tailgates and stuff, because I think that's a lot of fun and it's great to connect to the fans. I do want to ask you, though, in terms of this game itself, the Giants' offensive line obviously is going to have quite a challenge because this Packers defense is very strong. They're very fast. They get to the ball. They fill gaps. They got pass rushers. Obviously, Micah Parsons now coming over in that trade this year. This is a major league test for this offensive line. And Justin, I think by most accounts, they've certainly picked up their game this year as compared to the last few. But this is still a big mountain here.
It is a tremendous opportunity, I'll say, for the offensive line to continue to go out there and prove, they can play with the best. Micah Parsons, one of the best in the NFL, right? I was happy when I saw Dallas trade him, and then you look on the calendar and you still see they play him another time in Green Bay. But that's fine, right? That you can play against elite pass rushers day in and day out. You sleep well at night knowing you have Andrew Thomas over there at left tackle and Jermaine Illuminor playing right tackle. And is Jermaine back this week? I haven't seen the reports.
It looks like he will be, but again, not for sure.
Yeah. So obviously 2 guys that have played a long time and know what they're doing. The thing about Micah is he's going to float. And you saw it against the Eagles. He went against their new incoming starter at right guard, Steen, and they try to find the newbie and put Micah Parsons right over him and make his life difficult. And they have these linebackers that are flying around. Quay Walker, I think, is the name of number 7 on that defense. And you have Rashawn Gary, who normally is the guy that you circle, highlight, double, but you have to circle, highlight, double, exclamation point, circle him again as Micah Parsons. So like Rashawn Gary gets the single coverage or the single one-on-one. So it will be a tremendous test for this Giants offensive line. And I'm going to sit here and say, well, just run the ball and keep running the ball. But if you get in 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 9s, it's hard to pass the ball. So we got to take our shots, play balance. I need the defense to come out firing on all cylinders. That's how we make Jameis's life easier, the offensive line's life easier. Make it so it's multiple, where if it's a 3rd and 7, we can throw in a run there and not have to pass every single time or get into 2-minute. That's complementary football. And then we need our special teams to play lights out.
Yeah, well, fortunately, that's the one unit, Justin, that's actually been probably more consistent than the other 2 all season. Special teams has been pretty good. Again, the kicking situation's another unique thing that we can talk about for about 5 years now, because this has been the wildest kicking situation over the last 2 years with Gano's injuries and everything else. But the coverage units in the return game has actually been very good this year.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to sit here and act like I am. I know much about special teams, like the rules changing every day. Now teams are kicking it out of bounds and playing the penalty game. And I will say there was a unique special teams ending in that Green Bay game the other night too. So special teams, as you know, can win or lose you games. And
yeah,
I think the Giants, throughout the history of the Giants, special teams has been, look, they went to the Super Bowl against San Francisco on a special teams play. You have that muff punt, and then you kick the field goal. So shout out to Steve Weatherford and Tynes and Zach Diassi, my guys. But yeah, they need to have that unit rolling, and I fully believe they will. I just think the guys are going to play with emotion they didn't even know they had, because unless you're a first-round pick and you have a 4-year, 5-year, or a 4 or 5 year contract, everybody is being evaluated right now.
Yeah. All right, Justin, where can the fans get a load of your stuff, either online, on the radio, television, and of course at a stadium near you?
Yeah, look around your stadium this Sunday. I'm gonna drop by. Drop your seats in the comments. You can see my YouTube page. Go hit subscribe on my YouTube right now. Let me know that you're coming over from the Big Blue Breakdown here, and that's where you can find me. I go to the best games every week. I went to the best Giants game. We just dropped our Giants video of me going to the Eagles Giants on Thursday night, where we kicked their butts. I'm screaming. I was yelling, Jalen Hurts is washed up. The Eagles era is over. And since that game,
you may have been a little premature with that one.
Since that game, we're 0-4, and the Eagles are, I think, 4-0 or whatever they are.
I know.
But that was the greatest game I've been to. I ranked it number 1. Sorry to jump to it, but like, I just loved beating up on the Eagles. I'm from the Philadelphia area. Beating them was a highlight. But I also go to other teams. I'm going, I went to Houston. I went to Buffalo when they played the Ravens in week 1. I did go to an Eagles game when they were playing the opening night against – who they play opening night? They played the Chiefs opening night? Who they play?
I don't even remember.
Whatever.
I think it was. They might have.
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was.
No.
Wasn't, I don't know. The chat will let us know. They'll be like, you idiots. How do you not remember? But when you're on the spot, it's a little tougher. Yep. But we go to all the best games, and we get to see what it's like to be a fan for the day of that organization, of that team, of that fan base. And the best thing that I've realized from doing this, players, sometimes we think like our crap doesn't stink and everyone's there to see us. But then you don't realize like the fans that their dad brought them and their grandfather brought their father and their sister drives 4 hours every day to the game. And they just love the New York Giants or the Kansas City Chiefs or the Detroit Lions. And you find out what makes football so special. And then like my family got to experience that. My parents missed weddings and birthdays, and they would come to our games. We're in Green Bay. They're flying out there in the snow, and they're getting to experience that. Like football brought my family together. It's probably brought the folks at home listening right now. It's probably brought their families together. Paul, it's made me and you have had 15 years of knowing one another and having this relationship and having laughs. And that's because of football. That's because that organism we talked about that goes on no matter what. It's because of that community. And this is what the show's taught me. And I look forward to being there this week. I know we're down right now, but I'll say this. I'm going to be leading that freaking Big Blue chant in the beginning of that game and screaming my head off like all of you, because I love this team. I love this organization. I love this city. And this show is a representation of that. So definitely tune in and subscribe. We would love all the support.
Awesome stuff. So, folks, check out if you're at the stadium this weekend for the Giants and Packers, try to find Justin Pugh. He'll be the guy screaming his head off. I'm
60 pounds lighter, so just know I look like half the man that I once was when I was on the field.
The good news is, though, you'll have a Giants jersey on. It will not be a Packers jersey, and I know a lot of Green Bay fans are going to be coming to this game. So there you go. Look at this. There, old school.
If I don't wear the old school, I might go with the helmet. So I don't know. Do we do this? Or do we throw this one on? Like, this was one of the old schools. I don't know. This is like
wow.
So I don't know. Maybe I'll make this my thing, right? You have the super fans. I wear the Giants.
Got the vintage helmet going there. Impressive.
I love the vintage.
Yeah, so do I. Justin, it's been awesome having you on here tonight. I want to let you and your wife get to the television program and check out Rashad Jennings. So I'm going to let you go. I cannot tell you how much I appreciated having you on the program. It's always good to see you and talk with you. And I wish you have a great time at Sunday's game. And all the best to your family.
I appreciate it. Look, I got my dog right here, too. He's a Giants fan as well. So we got everybody.
All right.
He heard Giants and put the helmet on, and he was ready to go. So we got the whole family ready for Sunday. Paul, you're the man. I'll see you Sunday.
All right, you got it, Justin. Be well.
All right,
take care. Justin Pugh joining us, former New York Giants offensive lineman via the University of Syracuse with those Syracuse Orange Men. So great to have Justin on the program. I was working on that all day today because, again, he played on a 2017 Giants team that went through this, that had a coach fired during the season. One of only 4 times in the 101 years history of the Giants that a coach was fired during the season and then had to finish up with an interim coach. So it was important, I thought, to get the perspective of a player who has actually been through that, who obviously now, since he's removed, can talk even more freely about what that environment is, what those circumstances are like. Put that into context for you guys, because everybody knows the players who are playing today and who spoke in that locker room today, look, they got to worry about the present, and maybe they can't put perspective on a situation such as this. But Justin Pugh, former Giants offensive lineman, who also played for the Arizona Cardinals, as he also mentioned, he could do that for us, and I am so grateful to have had him on the program tonight. And I hope you guys enjoyed our mystery guest, because I was really hoping we might be able to get him on, and he did come through like I knew he would. All right, let's go back now over the course of our remaining program. We've got almost 1,000 folks live watching the show tonight. Let me see if we can get over to the chats. Folks, you saw how easy it was for Justin to do a video call. You can do one too, or you can do an audio call. Just look at the on the bottom of the screen there. You see there's the link, or you go over to the chat, and the link is also over there in the chat, and we'll be glad to talk to you. Let's see, what do we have here? We have, where did I leave off? I left off with Scott Young. Says, I would really like to get a good look at Turbo Miller sometime this season. We got to get this guy on the field, Paul, and I'm with you 100%. I just talked to Turbo last week, and the reason I bring this up is that special teams coordinator Michael Gabriel was asked about Jalen Hyatt returning kickoffs a couple of weeks ago. And he mentioned that Hyatt had been clocked with the GPS devices that are in the players' shoulder pads. He's been clocked as one of the fastest players in the National Football League. So I figured, you know what? Let me mosey on over to Dante Miller and see what Turbo has to say about that. And so I said, Dante, got to ask you something. Are you the fastest player in this locker room? And without a question, he said yes. And I said, well, I figured it was either you or Jalen Hyatt. And I told him what Coach Gabriel had said. And he said, oh, no. I have the proof. I am the fastest. And I believe him. And I hope that at some point during this season, and I don't know exactly when it might be, that Jalen Hyatt indeed gets an opportunity. Not Jalen Hyatt, that Dante Miller does get an opportunity to play. Because, this is his second season on the practice squad. And I think there's been some development there. I saw it during the summer, during the offseason, and then during training camp. He has definitely progressed, and I really think that he needs an opportunity to play. Now, if it's not going to be here this season, I don't know. Is he willing to sign for a third year with the Giants, or is somebody else going to say, now that he's been cultivated into the NFL regimen for 2 years, is it maybe a chance for us to pluck him off the Giants after they've given him some developmental skills, and then, he winds up going to another team? I hope not. Okay, Isaac Moore, 1248. Maybe Jameis Winston can unlock Jalen Hyatt. Well, Isaac, I'm all for it. I think the first thing that has to happen, though, if Hyatt's going to be unlocked, he's got to get on the field first and then be part of the game plan. Which is why I said earlier in the program, that's one of my big questions. Does this change in head coach result in some different snap counts for different players? It's something that bears watching. Harlem X says, hey, Paul, give me your thoughts. I'm hiring Rex Ryan as coach. Well, that can be for your team. It would not be for mine. A veteran, I guess, culture setter, pedigree, embodies New York, also calling Michigan and buying out Wink's contract and bringing him back as DC. Rex Ryan has already tried in New York, and I know there was a measure of success, but I don't necessarily know if he's the right fit. He was more of a fit for the Jets because, remember, Buddy Ryan, his dad, at one point was an assistant on the New York Jets staff many moons ago. And so there was certainly a connection to him through his father, but also through the Jet mentality and that kind of thing. I don't believe that Rex Ryan is a fit for the Giants' philosophy or mentality. But I do understand, okay, I do understand that he is certainly a quality defensive coordinator. I'm not sure about his level as a head coach because there were some ups and some downs. And so I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And isn't this funny now? I see Justin Pugh registering as a new member as part of our chat. As he was trying to get in, he couldn't figure out how to get in before, but he did eventually get in, and I'm so glad that he did. And there's Aiden saying, "Hey, Justin Pugh." All right. Harlem X also says, "I've been saying since day one, Hyatt is a really good receiver. When Tyrod was the quarterback, he jumped off the page. Hasn't been seen since. Nobody wants to consider that maybe Hyatt isn't the problem." Well, again, I just think he's been mysteriously buried in the shadows. And I know Russell Wilson was a huge Jalen Hyatt fan coming into the season. And then when Wilson got the starting job and played the first 3 games, Hyatt was not really in the game plan. And so I was like, I'm not sure I understand this because your starting quarterback really digs this guy, wants to throw to this guy, and he's not really in the game plan. So it remains to be seen if he will be back in the game plan. Isaac says, "Wow, JP, Justin Pugh is here." Yes, indeed. Aiden Fink says, "Straight off the couch." Indeed, he was. Harlem X says, "Okay, gotta go. Stupid schedule. You guys take care. Thanks again, Paul, for everything you do." And there's Justin Pugh saying, "Let me in." Well, indeed, he did get in, and I'm so grateful that he did. Isaac Moore laughing it up, saying there is no link. No, we were able to make it happen. Oh, Aiden with a good joke, the finest joke of the day, says, "I thought Paul had a doctorate in informational technology." Absolutely, positively not. No way. Matt Seepersad says he's the new head coach. I guess he was talking about Justin. Isaac says that was sacrilegious in benching Eli. Yeah, I don't think there were too many people who were fond of that move, benching Eli for Geno Smith. Isaac says, especially for Geno, no disrespect. Zaki Hill says, great insight. And I do believe that Justin Pugh had an awful lot of informative and educational things to say. I hope, folks, that you enjoyed having him on the program because I really was hoping we could make it happen. And he was good enough and kind enough to effort his appearance tonight. Aiden Fink says Dallas, and I'm not sure I understand exactly what that means. Marco B says, thanks, Justin. Isaac Moore says, Jameis Winston going to eat some W's. He might just do that. We will have to see. It starts on Sunday against the Packers. How about this? Mark B says, thanks for getting Justin Pugh on, Paul. Perfect timing. Great guest. Well, I appreciate it. And yes, that's what we try to do here. You know, we try to react to the news. And if there was somebody really appropriate who I think has something significant to add to the storyline moving forward, you know, I'm going to put them on. I'm not going to put on somebody who's just going to blap and not give you something valuable. I want to give you something to chew on. I want to give you something that could be useful as you try to enhance your enjoyment of the football team. And I think Justin certainly did that. So he was just awesome. All right, let's see here. We have Mikey C. Winston to the bye week. So Dart can ease his energy and watch from above. Well, again, I just want to make it clear to you. Dart's in the concussion protocol. And Mike Kafka today, if you're joining us late, said that he is just talking about this week. It's Jameis Winston 1, Russell Wilson QB 2. And he was not going any further. And, to be honest, remember, the league controls the concussion protocol. So there's no way for Mike Kafka to say anything else because the league will determine when Dart gets the green light to play again. So that has to happen before you can even consider putting him back in the lineup if you're Mike Kafka. Allison says, hey, Paul, if you could have your fantasy head coach, who would it be and what are the top 3 reasons you picked that person? And then she also says, Paul, a doctorate in IT, ha, ha, ha. I don't have much of a response for that part of the question, but at least the first part, yeah, who would be my three picks? Probably Bill Parcells, number 1, Tom Coughlin, number 2, and perhaps Ali Sherman, number 3. How about that? But those guys are not available. No, here's what I will say. I think, first of all, it's not fair to just start naming guys and to ignore Mike Kafka. He does have a 7-game tryout, so to speak, where he is the interim head coach. Maybe folks will be pleasantly surprised and he will wind up winning most of those games. Maybe that'll happen. I know the Giants are 2-8. They have found so many ways to lose games. So you're probably saying, I don't see them turning things around. And that's fine. It's reasonable to say that. But what I will say is this. It's not fair to Mike to automatically judge him on the downward spiral that this team is on currently. Maybe they beat the Packers on Sunday and that jumpstarts them and they turn it around. And they have a really strong second half of the season. And then Mike Kafka is going to get strong consideration for the job. So let me just push him aside for a second and say he is the unknown. He is the X factor. Okay? Aside from Mike, if I were running Team X, and I'm not going to speak for Joe Shane, nor will I speak for the ownership of this franchise, but if I were in charge of Team X as the general manager, I would look at this team and say, the roster is a 500 caliber roster. It is a roster that should have been at least in the conversation into late December for at least being able to scoreboard watch, have meaningful games, and been on the periphery of the race. I believe that strongly. And John Mara's quote, that the joint statement made by Mara and Tisch, was that there's been a lot of good young talent assembled on this roster. So they feel the same way. In other words, this team has drastically underachieved. I do believe that when you get the injured players back going into 2026, you're talking about a team that whoever the new coach is, I'll assume, let's just say for the point of this conversation again, let's assume that Team X is looking at a roster that is a 500 caliber roster. And they're going to get a star receiver back. They're going to get a star, or at least a budding star running back coming back into the fold. They hope to have a healthier secondary. Okay? And of course, they've got a really, really exciting young second-year quarterback. With those elements in play and a front seven on defense that is talented enough, make no mistake about it, they have vastly underachieved. But we know that the talent is there to be a top 10 defense. Okay? And perhaps even a top 5, as I have said multiple times over the course of the summer. That's an attractive job for somebody. I would think if Team X had all of those things in place, I would think they would be looking for a coach who has had some NFL head coaching experience on his resume, one who has won some playoff games, maybe not been to a Super Bowl, maybe not won a Super Bowl, but certainly one who has won some playoff games. And hopefully, it would also be one who has been in at least one of the NFL's larger markets so that he would have a better understanding, or at least have a chance to understand how to deal with the New York City spotlight, the fan base, and the media glare that comes with being a head coach for the New York Football Giants, a flagship franchise. That would be my thought if I were in a hypothetical position to look for a coach for that type of team. Does it have to be an offensive guy? No. Does it have to be a defensive guy? No. Because I would always look for a CEO coach, which means that his coordinator selections are just as important as his own selection. For example, Bill Parcells had Bill Belichick as his DC, and he had Ron Earhart as his OC. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. Tom Coughlin had Kevin Gilbride as his OC. He had Steve Spagnuolo as his DC. And then Perry Fewell when Coughlin won his second Super Bowl with the Giants. That's what I'm talking about. Hypothetically, I would want that NFL experienced head coach who has won some postseason games to be a CEO and to hire an equally qualified OC and DC. And I don't want to leave out special teams. And by the way, I think Michael Gabriel has done a sensational job this season with the Giants special teams. I believe that. I strongly believe that. And I think it would be a horrible shame if whoever is coaching this team in 2026, that Michael Gabriel could potentially wind up somewhere else. I would do everything I could to keep him in the building. But that's, when you look at the Giants' kickoff and punt return and kick coverage and punt coverage, yeah, they've had a couple of lesser games than they would have liked, but for the most part, they have been exemplary. Certainly, without a doubt, in the top third or top 10. I would even go to say top 10 of the NFL. Okay? When you include kickoff returns and the return game and the coverage game. Now, I know Jamie Gillen has had a couple of bad punts over the course of the season in critical times. I understand that. I do. And I know that the kicking situation, because of the injuries, not something that Gabriel controls, turned out to be a huge problem this year. But that's not on him. Gabriel is a schemer. He schemes the kickoffs. He schemes the punts. He schemes the coverages. And in those facets, the Giants have been terrific. So anyway, that's what hypothetically I would be if I was in the shoes of a mirror situation to the Giants. That's what I would be doing as I try to throw out a fishnet or a crab net, if you would, to try to corral the next head coach who could bring the Giants some success. Aiden Fink says Dallas was the opening game against the Eagles that Justin Pugh was struggling to remember. You're right. It was the Cowboys. Isaac Moore says, you think the offense will look different this week as far as game plan and taking some shots? Jameis Winston wants to take some shots. Okay? That's part of his DNA. He is going to throw some deep balls down the field. It's just the way he is. So I suspect they will allow him to take some. Allison says, well, I meant available people and specific to this team. Well, again, based on the factors that we know with this team, I can give you that hypothetical. I will not jump into the head of Joe Shane, nor the Maras, nor the Tishes. That's above my pay grade, and it's disrespectful to jump into their heads. That's not what I'm going to do. But from a football perspective, I can give you hypotheticals based on an analogous team to where the Giants are. And I've explained to you now what I would look for, the kinds of things I would want in the coaching staff if the Giants were to, or Team X were to look outside the building. Freedom 341, one of our regulars. Good evening, Paul. You know this guy Kafka. Do you think he will shuffle any of the lineup any? Go Giants. We had that conversation a couple times already during this program. You know, what is he going to do with the snap counts of certain players on this roster? That remains to be seen. I'm looking forward to checking that out on Sunday. That's going to be a big clue. He may not be able to dramatically change it on Sunday. He may have to take another week because he doesn't have a lot of time to tweak a bunch of stuff here. He could do a few things, but the player deployment, you may see one or two interesting things on Sunday. I mean, would it shock me if all of a sudden, as I said earlier, I'd love to see Jalen Hyatt suddenly become a much bigger part of this wide receiver rotation. He probably could do that without much effort because Hyatt has worked his butt off for the entire offseason to get that opportunity. So maybe that wouldn't require much of a tweak to just start giving him a bunch more reps. That would be one. But I don't think, for example, somebody asked me a little bit ago about Dante Turbo Miller. Now that's different because he's been on the practice squad all season and he hasn't been worked into the actual game plan itself. If you wanted to get Dante Miller on the team and give him a role, that's a bigger adjustment than just saying, I'm going to get Jalen Hyatt 25 snaps on Sunday. I don't know if you follow me on that one, Freedom, but that's where I'm coming from. He also asks, maybe see some of these guys like Neal or Bench Banks. I mean, the consistency of the offensive line is going to be critical against a very difficult Packers defense. I don't know that you'd want to necessarily make any adjustments in the lineup of the offensive line this Sunday. Now, what I could say, Freedom, if again, we're talking tweak, what if you decided that Evan Neal would be activated and he would be the extra lineman in a jumbo package? Because maybe the Giants will decide, you know what? We haven't done much with that whole 6 offensive lineman thing in short yardage or goal line. Maybe what you do is you could say, not much of a tweak, not that hard to do. We're going to activate Evan Neal, and he's going to be the extra lineman in that package. We'll use him as a jumbo. That would be a way where you could get him involved as a tweak, as opposed to having to do some type of massive overhaul. LV Giant 72 says, Paul, thank you for Justin Pugh tonight on the program. Saying here, Pugh as a special guest. Great to hear his perspective from the inside as a player. Well, again, thank you so much. Folks, if you're joining the program late, okay, it was roughly at the half-hour mark in. I know this program goes up on the archive. So at the half-hour mark in, and maybe I can get the SI people to separate just the Justin Pugh interview and pull that out separately. That might be a good idea too. At the half-hour mark in, Justin Pugh came on, former Giants offensive lineman. He was on the 2017 team that had released Ben McAdoo as head coach with 4 games left in the season, and defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo became the interim head coach. It's one of only 4 times in the franchise's 101-year history that happened. So I thought it was important to get one of those players on this program tonight to describe the dynamic, the climate, the environment of what the Giants players today are going through now that they've had a similar situation happen to them, albeit in the middle of the season instead of with only 1 month left. Alice says, yes, 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 a CEO coach. Yeah, exactly. That's how I would see it. And quite frankly, I'm sure that if Mike Kafka were to grab hold of this job during the offseason, if he does really well and they decide it's his, I'm sure that in 2026, Mike Kafka would approach the job differently because he would have had the experience of being a head man for 7 games, and he will have the offseason to go into his second year making use of all the different things that he will have learned from the 2025 campaign. So, whatever you see from Mike now will tell you a lot about what he could do as a head coach, but it won't tell you everything, because I'm sure he will digest everything that he takes in and try to improve even on whatever it is that he does during the final portion of this schedule. Going to try to get through these final chats before we close out the program. And again, folks, we're so happy to have you along tonight. Mikey C says, Aaron Pierce, Mike Kafka's head coach. Oh, I see what you want to say. You're like head coach Antonio Pierce's head coach. He can bring the D back. Well, Mikey C, Antonio Pierce, I believe, deserves another chance at least as a defensive coordinator in the National Football League. I have great respect for Antonio Pierce as a man, as a player, and also as a very, very crafty and aggressive defensive football mind. I do believe he deserves another chance at coaching in the NFL, at least as a DC, perhaps as a head coach. I don't know. I don't know for sure. But certainly as a defensive coordinator, I think I'd like to see him excel at that role again before maybe he got another chance to be a head coach. How about that for an answer? And oh, by the way, he was Steve Spagnuolo's right-hand man on the field when the Giants won Super Bowl 42 against the undefeated New England Patriots. The combination of Spags and Pierce was fierce in leading that Giants defense because Pierce had the green dot as the middle linebacker. He was Spags' coach on the field. And I think you guys know how I feel about Steve Spagnuolo. I don't even think I need to mention another moment about that. Tremendous, tremendous admiration and respect for that man. Mikey C says, Pierce brings back Brandon Graham. Most coaches stay in place except defensive. Brandon Graham, of course, was here at one point, then went to the Raiders, and we know that Antonio Pierce was out there. Aiden Fink says, you cannot have a first-time head coach again, and you absolutely have to hit on the next head coach. Can't be cycling through head coaches and coordinators like Daniel Jones had to deal with in New York. Aiden, you are so right. The next pick that the Giants make as head coach not only has to be a perfect pick, it's got to be the right pick, but the coordinators that he picks have to be the right ones too. This is a very tricky deal. I've been covering the Giants for 43 straight years. I started when Bill Parcells was a rookie head coach in 1983. Of all of the coaches, the head coaches, there have been 9 head coaches for the New York Football Giants during my time covering the team. Of all the 9 coaches that have been hired to direct this team, the guy who came in with the best resume was Dan Reeves. Dan Reeves had gone to Super Bowls as head coach of the Denver Broncos. Didn't win one, but had gone to Super Bowls. He had the most accomplished head coaching resume of any of the 9 coaches that I have covered for the Giants. He got them to the playoffs in 1993. And then in 94, in 95, and in 96, the Giants did not make the playoffs, and Dan Reeves' time with the Giants was over. Interestingly enough, that Bill Parcells, a coordinator who was promoted, won 2 Super Bowls without prior head coaching experience. Tom Coughlin, whose only head coaching experience was with Boston College, he wound up as an NFL assistant who got a head coaching job with the Giants and won 2 Super Bowls. Jim Fassel had never been a head coach in the NFL. He was on the offensive side of the ball. He gets a shot to be a head coach. In his rookie season, as a head coach, he leads the Giants to the playoffs, gets them to his Super Bowl, and then eventually his time ran out as well. Brian Daboll, never been a head coach, been an assistant. Gets hired by the Giants, rookie head coach, first year playoffs, and then things went south. So it's very interesting. Even though someone like Dan Reeves meets the boxes that hypothetically I think are very important to check, well, what happened? Parcells, Coughlin, and Fassel, all 3 had no NFL head coaching experience, and they all went to a Super Bowl with the Giants. And Reeves did not, despite the fact that his resume coming in was clearly the most impressive of them all. So there's no lock. There's no guarantee. This is a tricky, tricky deal. You could use all the logic you want and all the rationale you want and pick the right guy. Just like when the Giants picked Dan Reeves. That was a great hire. And yet, it didn't get them to where they wanted to go. I hope that gives you a little perspective on how hard this decision is going to be. It's going to be a very difficult decision. All right, let me just finish up these chats here at the bottom, and then we're going to sign off because we've been on for 90 minutes today. We did get over 1,000 live views on tonight's program once again. That's 2 shows in a row, and I'm greatly appreciative to you folks for that. Demario Montague says, go Giants. Freedom 341 says, we are so lucky for Paul and his great football mind. Very kind. I'm humbled, and I do appreciate your interest in our program. Mikey C says, Pierce made a legendary play. He deserves a spot on the team as coach. Sean Jackson, good evening again, Paul. How's the atmosphere around the Giants facility with some of the changes in Kafka's new opportunity? How's the overall energy level for players and staff currently? Right now, there's great respect for Mike Kafka because of his time here in 3.5 years. He has certainly earned the respect of everybody in the building. They know him. They respect him. They like him. They know he's a good football guy. He played quarterback, as you know. Not only was a star in college, but then had 6 years as a journeyman in the NFL. So they can relate to him. He's a very professional guy, respectful, classy, can be energetic when he needs to be, but he is more reserved and more businesslike and more even keel, and he tends to keep it that way. That's what I would tell you right now. All right, let me get through these quickly. Mark B says, after this season, in-season firing of Daboll, Jabu will bring life back to MetLife. I'm already excited. The good, the bad, the ugly. Let's go. I don't want to be like naive here, but wasn't Jabu the voodoo doll in Major League, the baseball film about the hapless Cleveland Indians? At least that's how I recall it with the sports reference that I can come up with. James O'Keefe, hey Paul, key factor as head coach is being leader of men, inspiring and getting the most out of his players. Oh, there's no doubt about that. Remember, Bill Parcells is number one priority. He always said this, told me this a billion times. Number one job, head coach, I've got to put my players in the best position to win. That's what I need to do. Number one priority, put the guys in position to give them the best chance to win. They're going to have to execute. That's for sure. Coaches coach, players play. I get that. But you got to give them the best opportunity. Set them up for success. Any parent out there knows what I'm talking about. You set your children up for success. You can't do it all for them, but you try to put them on the right road. You give them the map and you put them on the right road. And now they got to drive on the road. SVNT81 asking your opinion. Do the owners care about the product they put out that represents the family name? Doesn't seem like lots of other products and brands. It got cheap quality and gimmicky. Not only do they care, the families that own the Giants, the Tisch families, especially the Mara families, this has been their family business since the team was founded in 1925. Okay? That was John Mara's grandfather, Timothy Mara. Unequivocally, there is nobody on the face of this earth that takes losses harder than the Mara family, led by John, his brother Chris, Susan, his sister, Frank, another one of the brothers. I know all these folks. I know. And I know the pain and the anger and disgust that they feel with every loss. And I don't mean to name the whole family because there are too many of them. Yes, do they care about the product? It absolutely eats them alive when this team loses a game. They don't look at this franchise as a toy. They don't look at it as a hobby. It is the family business. And anybody who suggests what this particular comment has suggested, I don't think your family has a business. You probably work for somebody. Because if you were involved in the family business, you would not ask such a question. You would understand that every negative that happens to the family business hits like a left hook to the jaw. Sean Jackson. The Giants somehow have to find their next Dan Campbell, Sean McVay, Mike Tomlin, and Andy Reid, etc. I'm not going to argue with that. Mark B says Jabu is Jameis. Jameis Winston. Okay. Quickly, Mikey C, Mike Kafka as head coach. Pierce says defensive coordinator. Let's go G-Men. SVNT81 says they have to prove it. I guess he's talking about the family. He says he can't just waddle into the practice facility, act like he's angry, and it's beneath him to answer to the fans. That's what the Maras do. They answer to the fans all the time. Wellington Mara always answered the fans' letters. John Mara always answers the fans' letters. SVNT81, I'm sorry that you're so uninformed. I'm sorry that you don't have the facts, but now you do. Aiden Fink, famous Jameis. Folks, that'll do it for this edition of the Big Blue Breakdown. I appreciate everybody for joining us again tonight, specifically former Giants offensive lineman Justin Pugh. Again, if you're going to listen to the archive of this show, we came on at about 30 minutes into the program, and Justin was with us for about 25 minutes. And he gave us a really great perspective. as what it is to be a player in a locker room during a time when a head coach gets released and you got to deal with an interim. It's a lot of shakeup. And this team has a formidable foe in the Green Bay Packers coming into MetLife Stadium on Sunday. This is not an easy game. And Jameis Winston's going to be the quarterback. Again, Jaxson Dart is in the concussion protocol. He will, in all likelihood, not play this week. He is not expected to. Russell Wilson will be the backup. See how it goes forward from there. Don't forget, coming up on Friday morning, we will be back with the Big Blue Breakdown. That'll be a tape version of our show. We do 20 minutes in the morning. We post it early. You guys can get to it at breakfast if you like. And we'll go over the 3 key matchups and for the Giants against the Packers and the state of the injury situation and their possible paths to victory. How the Giants can try to win this game over Green Bay on Sunday and snap what is currently a 4-game losing streak. Then we'll be back on Monday morning again with another 20-minute tape program. The Giants' game balls and gassers on offense, defense, and special teams as we break down what they did on Sunday and tell you the guys who really did well and the guys who we don't think did so well after I review the tape on Sunday night. So that'll do it for this edition of the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Don't forget, the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and media network has all of your daily Giants news. Till next time, I'm Paul Dottino. Good night, everybody, and thanks for joining us.